The goal is to do software engineering, focus on that, that's what then everything else, that's what we have. It's like, now it looks totally different. Like, you've seen it's it's all 100%.
Yes.
Well, it's hard. It's like, it's my baby. It's my baby.
Yeah.
But good luck. I guess
You almost like hit me when I said that.
Not you.
Just like struck me with your eyes.
In my mind's eye, there was like a whole thing. You weren't in it. Sorry if you caught a flash of him.
I mean,
I wasn't involved in that.
Well,
of course you were. You're kidding? I know that.
As I said that, I just didn't realize that there isn't.
We don't use it.
That's really great to hear. I wasn't going to ask. I didn't want to.
Actually, just about to reel it out.
It was here one time when I came. I was like, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, and the site is different too and everything.
That's good. I'll check it out.
Oh, yeah.
When did you guys get?
Graduated.
I volunteered for like the first. I'm one of the seriously 7. I did last time. Yeah, I just didn't know it was set up in. So I signed up for the setup and then left. I was like, do I, you know? I did it last time.
Okay.
And then I did
Yeah, in terms of
Every so often,
This is where my mind is. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for staying after class or taking some time out of your day today. My name is Crystal Kaplan. I'm the Success Coach Manager here. Tonight we have 4 alumni who are from different WDIs, and they'll tell you a little bit about their background, what they were doing before they came to NYCDA. We'll talk a little bit about how they were feeling like week 4 or 3-ish during JavaScript, and then of course what the job search was like and what they're doing now. We don't have to go in that order, but those are some topics that a lot of students like to ask. Okay. And then introduce yourself.
Oh, hey guys, I think I've met most of you, but for those of you I haven't met, I'm Nicole. I am a success coach here also. So if you see us around and want to say hi or just tell us that you're going through a nervous breakdown with JavaScript, then you can always pull us aside and send us a message and we'll talk.
Yeah, and we also have DC, who is on IGC. So they are on YouTube.
Philly too, I think.
Oh, and Philly. Oh. So Philly's there also. So I'm going to turn it over to our alum, and we'll go from there. Okay. Let's give it a hand for them.
Did I just say my name?
Yeah, say your name, what you're.
My name is Stephanie Somerville. I attended the June 2015 WDI course. Should I tell my background before?
Yeah.
So before WDI, I was working as a real estate analyst. I was unhappy. It was like analyst / admin, and I didn't like the admin part whatsoever. I just didn't feel great about myself when I went to work every day. So I researched and I found out that they had boot camps, and I was kind of like, well, that's convenient, short amount of time, and don't have to go back to university. So I pretty much just quit my job and just went after it, and haven't looked back. And right now I'm working as a Drupal developer at NYU, the School of Nursing. Drupal is like a content management system similar to WordPress, but I'll definitely say steep the learning curve. So.
Name's Mauricio. I worked in marketing and sales for Milwaukee Tools. to like a power tool company. Before that, I was in the Marine Corps. Found out me and my significant other were going to have a kid, and this is kind of always something I wanted to do. I had a friend who works; she's a developer at Meetup. You've probably heard of Meetup a lot. And she kind of kept telling me like, hey, you know, if you did this, you'd probably be good at it. And she kind of told me how like kind of it wasn't this overwhelming thing like the way I made it seem. And so I thought, you know, I'm having a kid, I might as well do it before the kid gets here. And yeah, I'm working at Bark as a front-end intern right now.
Hi, I'm Bridget McMillan. I did the February 2016 cohort here, and before I came here, I was a bartender for a decade, and I had graduated from school with a degree in drama. So yeah, so I just jumped ship and caught a raft, and this brought me, and now I am a solutions engineer at a little startup called SailMove.
So we'll open it up to the audience for any questions.
So did all of you do the full-time, or did anyone do like part-time and balance work with studying coding?
Well, I did the full time, but like I said, I quit my job, so this was like my full attention. So.
Yeah, I didn't say that when I was introducing myself. I did the full-time. I graduated in April and I was in CAMS class.
Okay.
I did the full-time as well. I quit everything to do it. I couldn't afford to do that. Honestly, though, I'm still catching up financially, to be totally honest.
Okay. Gotcha. So what was the biggest struggle that you guys had in, you know, completing the course and things like that? Because it seems like most of you came from completely different backgrounds from technology and coding and things like that. So what was the biggest struggle? What was the moment where you're like, I don't think I can do this?
I don't think I got to the point where I don't think I can do this, because I pretty much am confident I can learn anything, but I have to, it's pretty much being comfortable with not knowing what you're doing every day. You just learn to, you know, be comfortable with that. I mean, I'm still like that at my job now. Like, you know, I'm been working for like a year and 6 months now, and every day I go to work like, please, just figure out what's going on today. Like, I mean, I would say, you know, it's gonna be okay if you can't understand everything or don't know everything, but just know that you can figure it out eventually, pretty much.
I think, yeah, just be comfortable drowning. Because you're gonna have like things that you're gonna struggle with, and then you're gonna accomplish that thing, and then the next thing is gonna be something you're gonna struggle with, and then you're gonna look like 3 months into the future and realize I felt like I was drowning the entire time, and I kept getting past these walls, and like the next wall was just as bad, but I kept getting past it, and so it's not gonna get easier, you're just gonna get better at dealing with drowning. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's no point in like dwelling on the frustration, right? You know, that's just waste energy that you need to get through those walls. And you know, like something that has been like a real comfort to me, especially like when I'm in the office now and I'm like getting paid, and on moments where I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, I'm like, well, it could be worse. I could be in Trump's White House. You know? They're all pretty confused. So.
Could I add something also? And then also, like even my managers at work, they're Googling everything too. Like it's not like you're the only person.
Yeah.
Like everyone, I think every developer, not everyone knows everything. It's impossible. So everyone's Googling,
Just
trying to figure out how to solve a problem.
Ask for help and just find like kind of supplementary sources. You know, it's not always going to be one thing that's going to answer everything. There are going to be some sources that are kind of going to be vague in certain areas where it's like something else will bridge that gap. So just kind of find multiple sources until it kind of sinks in, and then you're going to find in the future that you're not asking yourself the same questions anymore. You're stumbling on things that maybe aren't as basic, you know.
What was your interview process like on all of you guys?
So I've worked at 2 developer jobs, one in Philadelphia at a web development agency called ZipTech, And honestly, that interview was very conversational. Like, it was not hard whatsoever. I feel like I've been lucky. I haven't gotten like a hard like code, test. Pretty much, I was working, basically, I was freelancing and creating like WordPress sites, and I basically just showed them what I was working on. They were just impressed that I was just handling the project like on my own in my free time. So I think that's what really impressed them for that job. For the NYU job, to be honest, I thought I bombed that interview. Like, it was terrible. He gave me a challenge, and I was literally sitting there for like 30 minutes. I had no idea how to solve it, and at the end, I didn't even have an answer. And I was just like, oh, he's never calling me that. But I think because Drupal is like kind of rare to find somebody that knows that skill, I think that's kind of like what put me on the edge to getting that job.
For me, my experience with Bark, it was an in-person interview with the co-founder, another one with some developers, and then another phone interview with a developer. It felt like more of just making sure that I was the right culture fit. I think that I had like my code challenge, and I think once they get past this idea that it's like they can be coached and they can be talked through a problem and they can take criticism and kind of just like you can give them breadcrumbs and then wheels are going to start turning in their head. Once they see that that's a skill that you have, it's more about like making sure that you're the right culture fit. Like, you don't hate dogs. Like, I would get like that'd be important that I don't hate dogs. So it's just kind of, I think it's more kind of a testament to how sought after this skill is and how good an investment it is that you're in this room right now.
Yeah, I would say for me it was equal parts conversation and project, and then being able to sort of talk through the project that I did. But I didn't have any like on-site coding. I was just sort of given something to walk away with, make sure that I understood how to call an API in the language of my choice out of 3, and return some data. It's pretty straightforward.
Cool. Before we have the next question, let's get a hand for Nick Gotti. So, yeah, thanks so much for coming.
Sure.
So when you have a question, let's practice standing up and saying your name and then what class you're in. Who has? Does anybody have any questions anymore?
Do we want to
Can you introduce?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You don't need to stand.
My name is Nick. I graduated here 2 years ago this November. I full stack developer. Last year worked for marketing solutions company. This year for an educational technology company. Predominantly Node.js, other Ruby and Rails here. But at work, I actually do PHP. So this year I had to learn how to learn PHP and then PHP to do my job at this company. So, yeah, switched from, I have a bachelor's in music composition, so I switched my career 2 years ago from that. And I've enjoyed it ever since.
Hi, I'm Valerie. So which part of your journey was the most difficult? Like, which programming thing was like the hardest for you guys to learn?
In the program?
In your opinion, like in your WDI, like was it HTML or JavaScript?
Definitely JavaScript and the testing. Well, everything past testing, like it went completely over my head. Like I couldn't even absorb anything. I've always loved front end, so HTML, CSS, and all that kind of stuff. That's fun to me. Like that really wasn't a challenge. So.
And also, I just want to say that the curriculum has changed for each one of them. So you don't do testing, do you?
Testing was like on the last weekend, kind of optional.
Yeah,
I checked that.
But it's really important to do as a coder. In your workplaces, it will be all important. So don't dismiss it. Just learn it then. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, what do you mean by testing? Because we test our code now, our assignments all the time, and always don't work.
Right. It's writing code that tests your code. So it's basically like writing out the things that your code needs to achieve. Orlando, like use my teeth. So like correct me if I hope I'm making you proud. So it's basically writing code that's gonna check that your code is doing what you intended to do before you even start coding. So it's like writing checkpoints for yourself, essentially.
It's like math proofs, right?
Yes.
Like on, I'm sure Cam's told you about like Code Wars. But like on Code Wars, if you get something right, you pass all the tests. There's tests built into like the programs and stuff like that. Yeah.
Also, it's good to have a test suite as well, like a full suite of tests to cover a larger percentage of your application. Because if you're working on certain components and you're switching things around and you're making alterations, and then if you don't test things, you won't know if what you've just done happens to affect in a negative way some other part of your application. So if you have your tests in, then you can just run your test suite and it'll tell you, oops, this is what's going on here and this is what you have to fix.
So kind of like the console. Is that what you're
You mean like
like
logging
console
things to the
logs
console?
to see if
I mean, you can manually check things, but it's always good to have an actual test suite that you expect to have a certain result, and then you test against that result. It depends on what type of testing you're doing. You can test to fail and then build on that, or you can do it otherwise as well.
But I'm not like building on the professional level that you all are. I do use the console a lot. Like if you're not building that test suite, you're building a very small application for, here. One mistake I made here actually, and this is like way off of your question, I'm sorry, but is that I would get too far before I checked something and then I wouldn't know what was causing the problem. Now, when I'm building every little thing that I do, I install a console log until I'm sure that that works. I don't take it out until I'm done building the app so that I can watch my app play out on the console. More interested in what's happening there than what's even happening in the client, So using that is just like a very nice thing to do for yourself. It'll save you time.
Yeah, it's a good point. I just implementing one solution at a time. Because sometimes I'll throw like 4 things in there and then it'll work and it'll be like, wait, what fixed it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, because that's kind of what we're doing right now. We're using a lot of the console logs to test each thing. So I think that's the phase we're in.
It's good to do that. Like you were saying to basically go at every little step of the way you're wanting something, so that you know that it's like if you go and build X, Y, and Z, how do you know where it broke? Then you have to then backtrack. But if you continually log things and continually or test them in other ways as well, then you'll at least find it a lot sooner. Because it gets very frustrating if you find it out that everything's been working and then you have an error at this point. And then you're like, oh no. And now you have to figure it out in your code breadcrumbs. Back, where did this occur?
Do you guys mind if I take it back to Valerie's question?
Yep.
Because I did want to say that I definitely started struggling the most for me when we were doing Ruby on Rails. Ruby's very friendly, but Rails was really difficult because it uses the model view controller structure, and I don't have a computer science background. And while I kind of understood what each was, there were the architecture sort of is just like there, just is built. And that automagical thing, I didn't really know what everything was for, how to use it, and so I kind of sort of got lost in that, the microblog application and using it for anything else too. That was really difficult, and model view controller is something too that it's really important to come out of here understanding if you're going to take like computer science from here with you. That's just all important. And I still am not quite sure I understand it, but it's that for me was like the point, where I balked.
I'm Piner from the July part-time web development. One of the things that I'm finding hard to grasp, I guess, is when I'm building things, right, I'm able to reference the web, right? And so, but I could use the solution that's there, but I'm not completely sure that it was my solution. Or you understand? So
I
don't know
have
about
the
that.
same.
So I don't know, like, and I know how to put code from other people together. That's not the hard part. And I understand what it does. That's not the hard part. So I'm not sure that the approach of finding online answers is what I should be doing.
That's everything you should be doing. I do that every day.
Put your ego down. Don't reinvent the wheel. For real. It's all. Don't reinvent the wheel. Good coders don't reinvent the wheel. They are able to innovate because they don't waste time reinventing the wheel.
I have this sneaking suspicion that, like, in history of man, only one person knew how to code, and we've just been talking about it.
When I was in the course, I had that same issue. I don't know if he's still here, Brian, teacher, Brian. I was like, I don't feel like I'm doing it. It's one thing to, it depends on what it is. You don't want to reinvent the wheel, yes. But it's one thing to blindly do things as well. You don't just want to blindly do things because that also can cause issues in the future, which I'm sure we've all experienced. You just blindly put something in there because it works in the moment, and then you realize, oh no, this is not quite what I should have used for this particular use case. But I think that's just part of learning. Really, you do something that you don't know how to do, and then you kind of see how it's working, and then later on, maybe you'll implement something very similar that is quite similar to that on your own. In a more customized way. Sometimes you'll be dealing with tools that you need to customize on your own, and this may help you do that just because you know kind of how certain parts can work.
Because that's what kind of like. So I may be able to do some things on my own, right, and set up, let's say, an Express server on my own. But I'm trying to teach myself React now, and I'm finding tutorials online on how to do it, but they're using a lot of libraries that I never used before, and I'm kind of hesitant to use that solution just because I don't fully grasp what they're doing. You see?
That's never going to go away.
Okay.
I mean, right now, just to be honest, I'm at work. I'm dealing with something for template building. And we're using something called Grapes.js, and I'm going crazy every day because it's hard to figure out what some of it does, and also I was thrown in after someone else was coding half of it. So you just got to read the documentation and try to understand the best you can kind of what's going on, when it's going on, and why it's going on. The best you can if you want to actually work with a certain tool. But you don't have to, I'm not rebuilding it, I'm still using it.
Yeah, I think that, like, every week when I go to work, I'm working with, like, new technology, and sometimes it's stuff that's been implemented into the directory, sometimes it's not. So sometimes I'll have resources to, like, ask other developers, hey, you've worked with this before, like, can you walk me through it? And sometimes I don't. And so it's like you try your best to understand what's happening there, but you're going to be learning something new every single week. And yeah, just try your best to understand what's happening and just know that you're going to be lost for a while.
Just one more thing. How long did it take you guys to get a job after graduation? Like, how was that process?
Well, after I graduated, I actually was TAing in the Philly location, but when I ended the TA job, I would say about 4 months later, I got my first role. I was working with recruiters in Philly and stuff, but ultimately, you know what I did? I went to job fairs that everybody in the schools would go to, and everyone recommended this company, ZipTech. So I kind of just, emailed them, and reached out, and then I got that role. So.
I did my, what you guys will probably be doing at the end of the course and everything, the presentation, and that's what I presented, and one of the people that were there ended up hiring me. I didn't start until, I did that in December. I didn't actually start until the end of February because they had a hiring freeze right when I was about to get hired. So I had to wait like a month and a half. But that's where I ended up meeting those people.
On LinkedIn, I found out that Park was hiring, and there was somebody here that graduated like 2 years ago. He was a TA. He became a junior developer, and so I kind of reached out to him. I had worked with him a few times, kind of like he had walked me through some problems. I reached out to him. We met up for coffee, and he kind of put my name in, and I got the job. I reached out to Crystal too, just because Shermung was the lead there, and Shermung, I don't know if she still is, and she is. She teaches kind of like introductory courses to JavaScript, HTML, and CSS here, and so kind of like I think me talking to Horatio got me that phone interview, and then me talking to Crystal, who talked to Shermung, got me that in-person interview, and then I just did the rest of it.
How long after the program?
2 months.
Yeah, I networked my way into a contract gig right away, and then after that, so that was a job in product actually. It was not as a developer, and I actually hardly touched any code at all. Hardly looked at it. It took me a while to even like get access to GitHub there. But it was an industry job that I got because I had been here and because I had networked with somebody who saw the gumption when I came here. So don't underestimate your networks, for sure. And stay open-minded about what's available in the industry if it interests you. If you want to code, you code, you know? Don't settle for anything else. But you know, there's other things that I didn't know existed. I didn't know what a product manager was until I was one, and I loved it. So I'm really glad that somebody spotted me. But yeah, and then after that, technical to flex that muscle because I hadn't been. I didn't want to lose it, and I think it's a really important part of being a good product manager. So, so the job that I'm in now, there was a bit of a gap, like 2 months, but I was very lucky.
Hi everyone, my name is Cheryl, although some call me Sheila. I'm in the September WDI full-time program. So just based off of what you said, how did you know that you wanted to be a developer versus being a product manager? And also from there, you know, startups, corporate, freelance, like how did you know where was the right fit for you?
Wait, the first question was, how do you know you want to be a developer?
Versus being like getting into product, like did you want to be a developer or like try product management first?
Well, I think I always knew that I just loved front-end development. I think I knew that from the beginning. So, and freelance, I pretty much, so at their showcase, a previous student had come to see my project and he was impressed. And he actually thought about me, and you know, I think it was a month later after seeing the showcase, he was like, you know, I have a friend who he was working with a freelance client, and he's too busy right now. So I think, you know, it would be great to help her out, and that kind of like started my freelance. So I helped build a site for her in WordPress, and ever since then, you know, I can't say that full time I'm doing freelance work. Every now and again, I'll do like WordPress, Squarespace, or Shopify kind of projects. And I actually love it. I prefer that to being in office. I'm in office right now, but I honestly can't stand it. I just know that I'm meant to be an entrepreneur. So, you know, I'm just pretty much just trying to build my skill. I think I wouldn't say that I regret being in office because it teaches you like procedure. So obviously when I own my own company, I'll know, okay, this is what I did in my past job. I'm gonna do the same kind of thing. And your second question?
So like freelance, startups, or big corporate, like which route?
For some reason,
like
corporate, I don't know why it scares me or it doesn't really interest me that much. I think I would probably prefer like startup environment just because I like laid back or just entrepreneurship pretty much.
So the first part was whether okay, so I knew I wanted to do web development. I didn't want to do any other type of field when I did career switch and stuff. In terms of corporate or like my first job was very corporate. I mean, there was some. I tried to make it not corporate, but it was still corporate. You know, we had the cubicle and stuff like that. I didn't mind it as much. Kind of like having my own space, but it was also a long commute. for me. It was a 4-hour daily commute, so that kind of stuff. And now the job that I'm at now is actually a startup. I'm actually the 5th person in the company. And it's all remote. We actually are meeting, everybody's meeting each other for the first time, I think, next month. And yet I talk to these people every single day. But I like the startup world. This is the first startup company that I'm at, so I only have those 2 companies to compare it to. And I think what's probably more important than structure in terms of corporate or startup is like their structure to bring on a junior developer. My last job was corporate, but I didn't feel like I had a lot of support. Being a junior developer, I had, the manager didn't even have enough time to really talk to me about certain things. This is night and day. This 5 people, this CTO and then me, and then the other people in the company, and they're so cool. Like they don't expect you to know everything, but they go over things you don't understand. Even now, I mean, there's always going to be a world of things you don't know. So I think that's probably more important than just the rigid structure of it. So yeah.
Kind of me initially, just I think I'm in the earlier phases of kind of graduating and looking for work in comparison to people up here. I think initially who was paying. I think now it's definitely kind of finding the right fit in the sense of, what he was saying, mentorship is impossibly important. If it's all senior people and you're a junior developer, they might not have the time. So just kind of having those mid-level developers that can sit down and explain something to you instead of just kind of sitting there and just kind of copy and pasting a link, sending it over, and you're going like, hey, figure it out, just read the documentation or something. Somebody that can like bridge the gap with the understanding and everything, that's important. And I'm at a startup now. Well, I wouldn't call it a startup. They've been around for 5 years, but I think that they're aggressive about kind of like maintaining that environment. So there's like, cold brew, and there's like a keg with rosé in it. There's dogs in the office. It's nice. I don't know what it would be like, kind of like a corporate route or anything like that. But yeah, I think right now it's just kind of more setting myself up for where I'm going to learn versus if there's going to be dogs in the office. Yeah, which is cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as far as how I decided to do what it is what I want to do, what path I'm on. When I was here working on the group project, I was basically product managing it without even knowing it. I was not popular for it. Like, I was not well liked by my group, but we were damned pleased with the product that we made, because I was like, no, that's not the mission. That's not the mission. We agreed on the mission, no straying, and I focused us. That's like a task. It's a role that I naturally took on. So I got sort of shooed away to go work on the API integration because they didn't want to talk to me for a couple days, but it was great because I actually work with APIs now and I want to do product. And in that I discovered like, no, I'm comfortable being like, it's not a bad idea. It just has nothing to do with what we're working on. And I care about doing that. I'm passionate about that. So, I think that, I learned more than just to code here. I learned like where I fall in with other developers here, was able to sort of take that and then go work with developers as somebody who was asking them for things, but also empathizing with what their needs were and what the expectations were reasonable. You know what I mean? What we could put a level of effort on and what we'd have to maybe wait and see, honestly, just to echo what everyone has said, it's all about the training that's available for me. It doesn't matter the size of the company. My first company was like 9 people. The one I'm at now is like 40 people. Neither of them has been satisfactory with the training. I'm really disappointed. I keep getting told I will get it, and I keep not getting it. And I keep accepting lower pay because I'm told that they're willing to invest, and that's my bad. Only twice, right? But I want that damn training. I want to learn more. I got the bug here, like I'm curious. And so I want a company that's going to give me time to do that and support it. I haven't found it yet, but I'm gonna keep looking for that, and I'm gonna learn everything I can everywhere I go. So you have to make the most of it because you gotta eat. You gotta eat. You gotta make the most of what you find, but pursue the curiosity. None of us has described doing well. You're kind of doing, although you're maybe drinking more rosé than you did here. But we're talking Drupal. We're talking whole other languages that have PHP, right? I did product. None of us necessarily ended up doing what we did here, but we got curious and so we followed it, and that is what I gleaned anyway. So.
Yeah, to build that, like I said, when I came here to learn Ruby on Rails, I hadn't used Ruby on Rails in my professional career yet. So it's just, I guess it's not about necessarily what stack you're using either. It's also just kind of your understanding of concepts and programming, how it will grow. Because it's always going to change. My cousin went here also. Name? Anybody know? And I was talking to him about it, and he was going through the job searching part of it after he graduated, which I think was January. I think this was it. And he was trying to be every candidate. You can't be every candidate. Until I told him, don't learn that. To be the candidate that you want to be, and then, because you can't learn it. It's lying to yourself that you can learn every single thing in every single library. And I did that too, and then I just realized, no. So, granted, you have to get what's available, but don't feel the pressure that you have to know everything on that bulletin list that they post on all these websites for jobs, because you really don't.
Know what they are.
Sure, know what they are, but you don't know. You don't know. I got hired. I had no PHP experience. They actually allowed me to not take the PHP part of the coding exam to get into this company because I was like, look, I don't know PHP. Willing to learn though. Never even heard of Cake PHP. Willing to learn though. And I also told them I have a very good friend that does PHP, so he can coach me on some stuff. I did the JavaScript part. I forgot what other part. And then I just went through the rounds of talking to everybody. And I think they were really, they kind of knew at that point, okay, this guy's more on the junior level. Let's see what he's about more than anything. And I think that at that point they were willing to put that time to have these other two guys check my code, make sure I'm on the right track. And it was only a few months until they gave me a big project with the company. So it's some of those types of things where don't feel pressure to learn everything at once.
I'm Ajax, partner. So sounds like you guys have a lot of situational hiring things. Can you talk about your portfolio at the end on a project that's united to getting a job?
So my final project, it was basically an interactive map of great places to work, and I used oh my God, so long ago. I can't remember. I'm so sorry, but I honestly thought that my first job, they were more impressed with my freelance work, just because I was able to do it on my own. I was able to speak to clients. So I would say outside of the projects in the course, try to build something on your own, and include that as a project. And I think they just care that you're motivated and that you're able to complete projects and be able to manage making a product. So.
It was part of your portfolio.
It was part of it, but I think I relied more heavily on the freelance work because I just thought it was better. My final project, yeah, but I want to show them I could actually create a site that people would, my client would use. My client was a makeup artist, so I built her a site for her makeup artistry, and then she also does makeup for TV and movies and stuff. So I created a site for that and weddings, and then. My other client, actually, I used to watch her YouTube videos, and she did fashion and makeup tutorials. And I kind of just reached out to her, and I just was like, hey, you know, I'm really good at making sites. I think that your site could be better. And I kind of like gave her bullet points and how she could improve it. And she just literally just said, sure. And she worked with me. So,
my final project was, so you're talking about the final project or how the portfolio was played into? I guess my final project played a big role because that's where I met my first employer. It was voice controlled music notation. And from that, I also included other projects that we did in the course as well. And then in between the time from that one company and then this company I'm at now, I created just a few smaller projects as well. So I can't really say that it played a tremendous role after that first one. It's not to say that it's not important, but just for me personally, I think it's just because I met my first employer on my final project, and I didn't really have time even to make any side projects during that work here. But when I was, still looking for work after leaving the company I was at, I did do like a few smaller things just to boost up my portfolio, and of course my regular portfolio site itself as well, so which they had to look at, and then you'd see a few of them. So yeah.
My final project was it was like a YouTuber that reviewed like Pengus Munch. He reviewed like chicken places in London, like fried chicken places, and I made a site for him. As far as my portfolio or just my website in general, how much that played into me getting a job, I don't know. But when I met the co-founder for the Culture Fit, she asked me about projects I had worked on. I showed her. She said it was creepy, and then offered me a job.
It's really cool.
Yeah, I wasn't super proud of my personal final project, but I'm telling you, that group project though, like came out so well. And I begged prospective employers to look at it, and they were like, "No, I don't need to see that." It sucked. I was like, "It's really useful though. What do you want to eat? Just click. Just answer." So yeah, they didn't want to see that, John. See Philly. Philly.
Hi, I'm Hina. I'm in the full-time September WDI program. So getting back off of what you said about knowing, like, it doesn't matter which stack you know. In your job search, did you find companies needed like a full stack, or like did your company segregate the full front end and the back end, or like?
I think that stuff depends on A, how big the company is, and B, whether or not they have the money to actually separate these two people. I guess both of the companies I was at had me doing everything. So at Analect, I was doing everything. It was mainly front end. It wasn't really. I didn't really do much touching the database really, but there was still some back end type frameworks, like Python, Flash, and stuff like that. So I did programming in those types of languages. This company, I am on a regular basis touching the database in and out, so it is a full stack. However, like I said, it's hard to tell because it really depends on the size of the company and how much money they have, and whether if they have enough money, they may be willing to then separate front end, back end developers. If not, or if it's a small company, you may just be doing both. Kind of just like you have to just get a piece of work done, and it has to be done. So do what you need to do. But you can also just apply to positions, ask for back end or front end.
I have a lot of questions. What would you say is a skill that, besides Googling, a skill that we should focus on developing during and after the boot camp that you feel will give us a leg up on the job?
It's great.
Data structures and algorithms.
Really?
So Googling is really a skill
Yeah.
though. Like Googling is like finding, you can't find the answer until you know what the question is, guys. Just saying.
I would
But yeah. Anyway,
Sorry.
no, that's it.
Curiosity. The reason I said data structures and algorithms is because when you do get that like coding challenge, they may actually ask you some stuff and you don't really want to sit there. You at least want to do a portion of it. You don't want to sit there completely blank. You don't have to be like a genius at data structures and algorithms. I'm definitely not, you know. But just learn, learn how to do it on a casual, comfortable level or basis or whatever. Just kind of going through certain things for the job search part. For the working part, again, I think that's also important. I mean, in this particular company, now that I have a senior developer looking down at my code, he says a lot of times, great, you did it, but I might have to refactor some of it because we're now querying, a million things from our database, and this is going to take 4 seconds. Stuff like that. So that's where data structures and algorithms kind of come into play. There were like multiple learning a little bit about time complexity, even. Big O. If you guys have you guys kind of Big O at all? Time complexity stuff, so that you know that, okay, maybe I shouldn't do this because I have to query this much out of the database, and it's going to take forever. So just learn some of that stuff so that you're aware, so that you can talk about it, have that conversation in an interview, which may also give them the leg up and being, this guy's in the right track, or this girl's in the right track. I think we can take them in as a junior, on a junior level, and bring them up to par what we want.
Data structures, you mean like arrays and objects?
It's also how to query those as well, or how to manipulate them. Like you have a multi-nested array and you want to get this, how do you do it in a really fast time without using way too much processing power and stuff. Like I said, those are just things kind of casual level, just bring yourself up to speed with something that you can at least, if you see a question like that on a programming coding challenge, you can be like, okay, you know what, I can at least do part of it. I think a lot of people don't probably even care if you get the answer right. They just want to see how you're doing.
Also GitHub, it's part of what you're learning here, but being able to use it with other people is really important because most things you work on, you're not going to be building alone. And so being able to watch what they're doing and merge requests that are concise and eloquent and express, and being able to follow the best practices of your company. I've definitely been stumbled on proper GitHub etiquette and had to essentially go back and erase everything I had done. And I had it, I had the code, but it's just a time waster if you can't do it. It's a learning curve too. It's not maybe as steep as people, but it's really nice for the other coders if they don't have to, if you're a sponge with that. And then also algorithms these are practical things, but we kind of talked about it earlier. Whatever you love, learn that. You will be valuable if you really, really know something that you really, really care about, because I think that there's something to be said for that too. Yeah, you should be able to talk about efficient code in an interview. You should also be able to show that you're excited to do the job in an interview, right?
And I think too, she mentioned something kind of in the beginning, which just learning how to break down your problem. Because I mean, you could have built a website. I'm not just going to Google how do I build a website. So you have to be able to find those specific problems and try and figure out in your head how do I Google this so that I can find what am I stumbling on right now? What very specific thing am I stumbling on right now, and how can I figure that out?
I try to think of the best thing. I would say that The CRUD applications and understanding model view controller, I think, was the most valuable because it just helps you understand, I think, code better. For Drupal, what I'm using now, it's almost as, I would say, the equivalent of like when you, by the time you got to Rails and it did a whole bunch of things you didn't know what was actually happening, but because you started off learning the foundation with Ruby and all that, it's like you can understand what's actually happening. And I think that's valuable because you could, basically it's like almost walking to a job and just having Rails and you didn't understand all of the foundation that it took to get there. So I think that's valuable, just understanding how code works.
Can I add to I guess a second question? So a lot of things you were talking about are like hard skills, like CRUD, algorithms, databases. But sprinkled within that, I don't know if you heard any of the soft skills. So curiosity, likability, all of them, they went through interviews and you heard them talk about, they kind of looked at my portfolio, but they just wanted to find out, like, they just wanted to talk to me and get to know who I am, right? Collaboration, critical thinking, talking about like, what is the problem? Asking questions, right? It's figuring out what's the correct question to ask. So I just want to point that out and make sure that you pulled the soft skills pieces out of there too, because that doesn't sometimes come naturally to a lot of people. So in class now, start with those soft skills. So you're going to be working with other people, and you're gonna have to like it. But I think also, like, even to get there is that passion and curiosity and enthusiasm. I can't tell you how many times I've had employers be like, yeah, we interviewed this person and they had great skills, but it didn't seem like they really cared, right? And
the number one complaint, or the number one reason.
Yeah, the number one reason. I've had down in Philly, a company has hired a bunch of our students, and they're like, yeah, we interviewed the candidate, and their skills were decent, but she was hungry. She was eager and excited. And that's why we hired her over the other person who had better skills. You know what I mean? Not as excited. So I think I want to make that point. We have about like 7 minutes. So any other questions? And then we'll finish and you guys can talk to them one-on-one.
Brandon Williams, I'm part of the July part-time class. I just have one question. How would you describe your current workflow from opening to closing at your
So when I come in the morning, I come in like around 9:30. 10 o'clock, we have a meeting just to go over what we worked on yesterday. We'll mention if we had any blockers. Like, let's say, I stumbled on this part yesterday. So then you kind of discuss it so that everyone can give their feedback. Well, I think maybe you should try going this route, just giving suggestions. And then you just mention also what you're going to be working on for the day. And usually we have sprint planning meetings every week on Wednesday. So pretty much everyone is aware of everything that everyone's working on. We kind of go through every ticket in Jira is what we use. And we'll just say, okay, next sprint, we're working on the following. And we even go detailed for every single ticket. We'll, possibly give suggestions on, how you should go about, getting through the ticket. So I like that about my team. They're very we pretty much talk about everything. My team is very small too. There's only 2 other developers on my team right now. So just very transparent. Everyone's pretty friendly. They're not frustrated when helping. So that's great. And I mean, they're right next to me, so I can turn around and say, hey, I'm stuck on this, pretty much. And then I basically leave at 5, so and I have hour lunch now.
So I work remotely, so I go to the coffee shop. If it's actually, we have team like Google Hangouts twice a week. And then every 3 weeks we have like a full company, which is one extra person. On Monday mornings at 9:30, we have about an hour and a half call, and we go over basically just kind of a recap of what we did last week and what kind of we're going to do this week. And also, everybody could kind of go one after the next and just kind of show if we have anything to show, because we're not in the same office. So we'll have a screen share, like, okay, this is what happened, this is what I did, and whatever. And then the rest of the day is really just working out on your own, finishing whenever you kind of feel like it. I usually work from 9 to 5, 6, 6:30. I mean, it really varies. It really depends. And then on Wednesdays we have mainly just the core development tool hangouts meeting. And that's where we start being a little more technical about things, about what we're going to do. But every day is really mainly that. It's just whether we have a meeting or not, it's just starting my day and then building, working on what I have to build. And that's really it. Seeing what I have left tomorrow, but when you're working remotely, it's kind of harder to pace yourself because there's no like end of day thing going on. So you gotta, I think if you're gonna end up remotely, don't overwork yourself. There have been plenty of times where I've worked in a coffee shop for 12 hours straight, and it's not good. It burns you out. If it has to be done, then okay, but I mean, on a remote standpoint, that's mainly my general basis, 9, 5, 9, 6 or so. Just building out things within that time.
Right now for me, it's 10 to 5. We used to have daily stand-ups, but we stopped doing that, where we would just kind of talk through our blockers and then what we were working on at the moment. Right now, we're just kind of like shifting to a weekly thing where we meet up and talk about that and new technologies we're implementing into the stack. I usually, if I'm blocked, I'll talk to somebody that's kind of at a higher level than me, try and schedule something so we can pair for a bit, or just kind of Slack them and be like, hey, I'm working through this problem, I can't really figure it out, and maybe they'll just kind of give me those breadcrumbs that I need. Sitting down with product managers and just kind of them and design, and then just kind of working through what design wants me to do, and then kind of like the PM looking over at me and going like, hey, can you do that by Sunday? And me saying like no or yes. And then just kind of going from there. It's really awesome when you have a good PM that is going to kind of take that into account and not try and drown you and promise like the CEO, like the world by tomorrow. So that's great. And yeah, like I said, 10 to 5. Rose and penning bugs. Sounds
like a lifestyle.
So I usually am already checking emails on the train. Some from clients, some for Jira tickets. Get to work and immediately deal with any Jira tickets that our developers are overseas. By the way, they're in Estonia. There's like a huge tech community. University of Tartu is very good computer science program, so they're in Estonia. So anyway, they'll get work done overnight, and so I'll go in and see if they need me to get any more information from clients, if they've left anything for me to pick up where they left off. More often than not, they just are like, can we close this up? Because the tickets in Jira, that like there are analytics about like how fast work is getting done, so they want them closed. So that's kind of the beginning of my day, and then usually I'll have on any given day either like a meeting or two with clients because I'm working largely on implementations and integrations. So the application that I work with integrates with other third parties and around people's websites. So I'm either talking to a new client about the implementation process, sending them documentation for our product. I might be talking to a current client about deepening the integration. So it's like it's pretty diverse actually, like the different stages that clients are at. I also spend time writing documentation for our product, and then rewriting it after it gets reviewed. And then whatever spare time I have, there's a couple of internal projects that I've been tasked with, and usually, my pay structure also includes a bonus, and so I have like another project that's sort of a quarter-long project each quarter that I have to do to get paid. So I'll work on that if I have any time to during the day. So there's not like an hour by hour.
That she had mentioned kind of like QA is like a huge part of my job that I did not think was going to be a part of my job, because like I finished a project and I'm like, cool, I'm done, this is awesome, and then I hand it to them, and then they throw it right back at me and go like, we'll refactor it, make it better, kill this like trailing white space, stuff like that. And that she mentioned, we use Clubhouse for our tickets, and so it's just kind of like making a ticket and just making sure that you're breaking it up into steps so that they know like exactly where you're at and stuff like that.
One last question.
Right here.
Yeah, you can, and then we'll close it up.
So any regrets about the program, and if there are no regrets, what would you have done differently during the program and afterwards, like trying to get jobs?
I would say I have no regrets. It's not like the program was like, I loved everything about it, but at the end of the day, I feel like it was just invaluable, like that I was able to quit my job and literally make more money than I was making at the place I was unhappy. And you know, I can't say anything about that. You said, what was your second part of your question?
So if there weren't any regrets, what would you have done differently while you were in the program, whether that's maybe studying different techniques or going to meetups for prospective jobs? And then after the program, what would you have done differently that you think might have helped you find a job easily or better?
I think I would have loved to do more like side projects using Ruby on Rails, just to get more practice in. But other than that, I don't know if I would do anything differently.
Yeah, it's a hard question. About the course, I don't have any complaints. I love the teacher.
It's okay, you could tell us the truth, they won't mind.
Brian was awesome. Afterwards, I guess, I don't really know. I mean, there's always something that we could have done extra, but I don't regret anything that I didn't or did do. If that's the question. I guess, I don't really know, to be honest with you. I'm pretty happy with the way things went.
Were there like things you spent a lot of time on that you didn't find like a good use of time in retrospect? Sorry, I'm
going back 2 years.
Yeah, if they were, we forgot them by now.
Yeah, it's 2 years.
I just feel like if I had a list of everything that I had actual problem with in the program, it's like where I am today. It's just like it just feels really petty to like complain about little things like that.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like I'm making definitely making way more money than I ever thought I would be making. So I'm just like all the little petty things that all the little petty things that I was upset about, it's like in retrospect, like whatever, it's over. Like
Yeah, my question isn't so much catered to the complaints because we all have goods and bads about everything. It's more so like techniques that you found you could have done differently that might help us, because we're in our 4th week, at least. I don't know about these guys, but we're in our 4th week right now. And I'll give you an example. Like I spend a lot of time on something I might not understand, and I'll spend a whole day of a workshop going through it. And then I realize, okay, stop focusing everything on that one part of a question and go on to the next thing. And you can always come back or ask somebody, because all of us are struggling that way. So are there like other techniques, or time management is crucial, just knowing how to make sure you don't put all of your time and effort on one thing and just look at the bigger picture. Like any useful tips or suggestions?
I remember one night I was at home after staying here so I was, how was the course? The class is on 6 o'clock?
6.
I think I stayed here till like ate something, I went home, and then I worked on something some more, and I just couldn't get it. It was just like so frustrating. And the next morning, I came back here, and I got it. So I guess, like I said this actually before, don't burn yourself out. I think that's like the worst thing to do. Because you end up not getting anything accomplished. I even actually nowadays, like I get even frustrated on stuff. Don't get frustrated on stuff. I'm quite guilty of that to this day. Yesterday I even asked the senior guy, I'm like, how are you so calm? We have to get this done in a week for a presentation. And he's like, we don't get anything done if we're frustrated. And I'm like, you know, yeah, you're right. So in terms of maybe what I would have done differently, or what I would like in the future to do differently, is to try to not get so frustrated and not to burn myself out, like that. Because it's very easy to do that. So you always kind of have to watch and make sure you don't just pull your brain down into the bush.
I think for me, if I could go back, it was just kind of having, like I mentioned earlier, the supplementary materials, just because I thought for a really long time, and I was really overwhelmed when I was in boot camp, like crazy overwhelmed. And I thought for a really long time, all I have to do is watch the videos on Panopto and read the PowerPoint slides, and I'm going to learn this. And I ended up learning more after finishing the program in those 2 months, just kind of sitting at home and just kind of Googling stuff and on different websites and going through like different tutorials and stuff like that. I ended up learning more then than I did in a lot of ways while I was here. And I think that this kind of teaches you to teach yourself. So like find multiple supplementary materials and keep those tabs open. And sometimes one thing will explain something a little better than the other thing isn't explaining. But I think a crazy thing is that you're going to have these questions and they'll go unanswered and weeks will pass. And then you'll go back to that question and be like, wait, when did I learn this? Because I know it. And I don't remember at any point like learning it or seeking that information out. I kind of just like learned it organically and that happened.
Yeah, I mean, to your, what you're saying about frustration, which I've been saying earlier, like it's energy, like that you can't spare, right? Like I did say, like, I quit my job to do this. I couldn't really afford it. I couldn't afford not to though either, because like I had to be like in it and immersed in it. But at the same time, I also had to like take a little space from it when the time was right for me. You phrase it in terms of regret. I mean, like I try not to subscribe to that, but one thing is that I was meditating at lunchtime when I started. Like when I came here, that was a skill that I had and I used, and I stopped. I got social. I went to hang out with my classmates, and I stopped leaving to go meditate. And the water's right there. There's like a beautiful little courtyard down the street. And it got harder, and like the material got harder and focusing got harder. So I really wish that I had continued to give myself that space and that sort of moment to sort of, it wasn't a moment of clarity per se, but a moment of like clearness, and that really helped me come back ready to learn. Actually, two more things. One is like, the walking away from something, like before this, I took at another code school, like just a front end course. And I can't believe they gave me a certificate in front end. There were like 3 lines of JavaScript in my project, which was like the minimum requirement. And I didn't understand it. And I maybe couldn't have even told you what those lines did. Like I shouldn't have been certified. But I came here and like months and months later. And JavaScript was just like, boom, boom, boom. Like it just fell into place. And the Code Academy actually tutorial is very human. Like it does it in a very human. That's really helpful. So the supplementary stuff, just going out, even if it's like basic, if it's like the exact same thing you did in class, just hearing it from another point of view sometimes helps it sink in. And then the final thing I would say is that my final project, and this is in terms of like after, right? Like I said, I wasn't proud of my personal final project. I did a project in Ruby on Rails because I thought I should get better at it. And I might even say I regret that because I was more interested in JavaScript. I loved JavaScript by that point. And instead of doing it, and there was so much more to learn. It's not like I had it down. I could have learned so much doing a project in JavaScript. And instead I was hard on myself and I did a project in the language that I didn't love and that I thought I should. And had I done a project in a language that I cared about, like I might have walked away with something to show that I was proud of. So, you know, like when it comes to like what, you know, like you won't regret doing what you love to do. You know what I mean? Like you'll get good at it, you'll learn something. So like it's not like don't shit all over yourself, you know?
with what she just said about like the Code Academy thing, don't think you're above any resources.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna sit here and you're gonna be like, I'm in a code boot camp, I should be above this. Don't. Because you're gonna walk by like mid-level developers and ask them like, how'd you learn Angular? And it's like on Code School, you know, like that like the Angular video with like the song in the beginning where they try and teach you Angular through songs. Like
No, send it.
don't think you're above certain resources.
I love Team Treehouse.
Mm-hmm.
That was my favorite. Because they talk to you like you're in second grade.
Okay, one more question.
I was gonna ask, what's the inspiration behind everything?
Whoa,
For me, it was the baby. I had a baby on the way. Selling, like I said, doing like marketing sales for a power tool company, and I was happy and I was doing all right. But I thought about like, where am I going to be at in 10 years doing this, and is that going to be a place where I could provide for him as much as I want? And the answer was no. So I sat there and I said, I'm going to do this for him, and I'm happy.
Cue with arms wide open. Great song.
So inspiration to get into development, is that the main?
I mean, inspiration behind joining the boot camp.
Okay. Well, so inspiration to do a career switch and then go to the boot camp would be like, I had a company, my own company, which I still have, that writes music for film. And if anybody owns a company here, you know that work goes up and down, up and down, and up and down. And I had to make the money that I made when I was up last me while I was down. Sometimes the downtime was quite long. And after few years of doing that, I just wanted to still do it, but I wanted to just kind of get something that was a little bit more regular and full-time basis. And my cousin, who I convinced to come to this course, convinced me first to do development because we were starting a startup, which actually never happened. And I was like, you can't do this. You have a computer science degree. And he's like, no, idiot. And so I started looking at the schools, and I liked this school particularly. I think it was because of the curriculum. And that's what led me to do it. And I think I came when this room wasn't even finished being built. I sat in here, no air conditioning. And I was like, wow, this is cool. And then when I was talking to people, I started realizing, wow, there's a lot of other people coming. You know, career switching, even people in music and arts and stuff like that. Like, I think Founder went to NYU for music.
Zach.
Zach, yeah. So I was like, wow, I kind of felt comfortable. And that's what made me specifically choose this school as opposed to the other school that I was thinking, which was also $5,000 more. It's also a big reason I didn't
that party.
For me, I have a finance degree. I never actually used it. Pretty much I got it just because my dad told me to do it. That's pretty much why I got it. For some reason, he wanted me to be an investment banker, and that idea like scared me because I'm just like, it really wasn't anything that I wanted to do. He was kind of like, it just makes a lot of money. You just need to do that. So I never actually got a job in finance. I went to a job fair at Rutgers. That's the school I graduated from. And literally the first table, I started talking to them, and they, were talking about real estate analysts. Like, I honestly had no idea what it was. I was just pretty much desperate and happy for anybody to take me. And that job was in DC, and I had family in Maryland. I just literally took the leap, and I was like, I just need anything at this point. And that's how I kind of fell into real estate analysis. And it was cool, but I really was never passionate about it. I had 2 jobs as a real estate analyst. And the second job was the one where I was an analyst / admin. And he kind of told me, oh, the admin work is going to be so small, you're not even going to kind of notice it. But in retrospect, it was pretty much like 80 to 90% of what I did. and I don't think he wasn't really nice. He's always upset about everything, and I kind of felt like I was in a place where I didn't feel respected. I'm like, I know I'm way smarter than this, and I'm just like, and we had a team of developers that was working on basically like a portal that kind of like would forecast real estate analysis. And I just saw that they got way more respect. Like they were just treated like gods. And I was just like, wow, I want a piece of that. I'm like, I'm getting treated like crap. I'm just like, I'm way smarter than this. And then I was just yearning for something creative and just be able to create something. And I tinkered web development as a kid, like just building like blogs and stuff, but nothing really too serious. And then when I was researching, I really researched every night. I was like, I gotta get out of here because I just can't take it. And I, found out about the boot camps. It was just enough time that I needed, like a short period of time. And really, honestly, I don't regret it because I just hated being there. And honestly, I think pursuing web development is kind of like symbolic for me because, my whole life I was just following what my dad wanted me to do, what other people wanted me to do, like what I felt like was, supposed to do. And like, this is my first time I'm like pursuing something I actually enjoy and I'm passionate about, and that's something I definitely can't, regret at all.
I feel the same way when you said that. I didn't one of those dead end jobs that I hate.
Yeah.
What you're saying right now.
Yeah.
That's so funny because my father is a programmer. So when I told him I was going to learn web development, he was like, "Really?" He never pushed it. But my inspiration was I also kind of moved at the speed of pain there. So one thing is that I heard you could work remotely as a web developer, and I was like, I want to do that. And like the space that I worked in would have been like the same area as like from this table to this wall. Like that was my space every day. I was just like a little pinball running around back there, and the thought that like I could work anywhere in the world was really appealing from where I was standing. So that was definitely a major factor of my inspiration, was the flexibility of it. And the other thing is that I was really interested in linguistics, and I was like, well, I want to be like a professor. And I didn't want to go back to college. I just was like, that I can't afford it. I don't want to spend that kind of time, but then I was like, well, coding is language. It's vocabulary and syntax. I could get behind that. And yeah, I do think that that stuck with me. That's why I liked it. I do like coding, and I think that that's that and identifying problems and then identifying solutions. So because I felt like what I was doing before with the drama background was sort of identifying problems and stopping at that. To me, good art, I'll say, is raising the right question and then like leaving the question open so that people can walk away and discuss it. And that wasn't satisfying for me. Like I wasn't satisfied with just asking the question. I wanted the answer. So I wasn't getting enough from what I had started with and needed to kind of get into STEM to find what I was looking for. And the culture of tech is so sexy and exciting. It's always growing. It's moving so fast. There's a lot of appealing things about it. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for being here. You can find all of their information on the page that we have, that has their bios and stuff. Make sure, what's the best way to get in contact with you guys on LinkedIn? Sure. Yeah, so make sure to send a personalized message, say who you are, maybe a question that you've asked so they remember who you are. And let's give it a hand for our alumni. Thank you.